is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marcy Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DeMano. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Well, welcome to the Warrior Parent Podcast today. We're so grateful to have you here, and we're excited because today we are talking with Dr. Lum Frundi, a pediatrician and founder of Generational Wellness. Dr. Frundi is passionate about helping mothers create sustainable, healthy habits so they can change the narrative from disease to wellness in their family. And that sounds like a really great thing to do. So welcome, Dr. Frundi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wow. So this is a big day for me because I am all about, generational wellness. We hardly ever have anyone who's able to speak about this, but just specifically, I was just telling Dr. Frundi that I've been in the medical space for 30 some years, pretty much retired by now. My background is exercise physiology. And so a big piece of my life has been about nutrition. Marcy's probably sick of me talking about it, but it is it is something really, really important. And I've seen so many changes in my lifetime around food and nutrition and the way we eat and how it affects our well-being. So anyway, I'm super excited that you've taken time out of your busy day as a pediatrician to talk to us. So anyway, give us a little bit of background, Dr. Frundi, about how you became a pediatrician and why this topic is near and dear to your heart.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited just as much as you are because there's a lot out there and we have to get our voices out there to see the changes that we seek. So I'm excited to be here as well. But as for me, I've always wanted to be a pediatrician for as long as I can remember. Even going into med school and going through all the rotations in different specialties, it was always peds. I remember I had a close friend of mine. She always wanted to be an OB-GYN, and I always wanted peds. So when we're in opposite rotations, when the baby's born, I'm trying to leave the mother and follow the baby, and she's trying to leave the baby and follow the mother.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, so it's something I always wanted to do. But through years of practice, as I started my practice in peds, I found that talking to parents, it was more than just taking care of the kids. It's like taking care of their families. It's taking care of so many things that I wasn't really prepared to really get into. So over the years, I think as time went on, and you being in medicine, you see, how we practice medicine. You barely have time to address even the basic concerns, not to think about, talking about nutrition counseling or exercise counseling. We just print out a paperwork, give it to you and tell you good luck, right? Like these are the things that you should do and go do it, but not being taking into account what the underlying factors or what this parent may be going through that may be preventing them from keeping or staying on track with what they're supposed to do. But after I had my own daughter,
yes.
I got diagnosed with high blood pressure. And the thing is that high blood pressure runs in both sides of my family, mother and on my dad's side of the family. And even my older sister in her late 30s was diagnosed with a heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very strong, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So when I took up that diagnosis, I looked at my daughter. I'm like, I was started on medications. I didn't like the side effects of the
No.
medications. And it was just holding me down. When I looked at my daughter, I'm like, I don't want her to get to this point where I am. I know everybody is a strong family history, but I know
Yeah.
there are things that I can do to reverse.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
how I started my personal journey. And as I started making the changes for myself, I was doing the same thing with my families too, where I started changing the way I practice, or how I changed the way I use that 30 minutes I had with them to address those critical things that are more concerning. So it's just everything changed from then. And as you start practicing it, it's just you understand the challenges as you go
Yeah.
through, you
Yeah.
become more empathetic, and
Yes.
everything
Yes.
changes from there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I recently was just reading something that so hit home for me, and it goes right along with what you're saying, but it's the idea that if we empower women, we change everything because the women are the caregivers and the women are taking care of the children and they're often feeding the family. And that's not, not to play into a female stereotype, but it's just part of that caregiver mentality. And if we can uplift and educate and empower and give the resources to women, it will affect everyone. It will uplift everyone. And I just thought, wow, that is so true. And it goes right in line with what you're saying about as a mother in particular.
Right, because we're the foundation. Every life starts from a home. And
Yes.
if we're not really intentional about setting standards, setting limitations, setting things and within the home, and then where our kids
Yes.
are grown up and they're like, okay, good luck. And they have to start struggling
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. And then you
Yeah.
have children raising children who've never really understood certain principles
Yeah.
or how to
Yeah.
even take
Yeah.
care of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. Marcy and I, we do a lot of work, or we attempt to do a lot of work around social emotional learning. And we really feel like, we never had that sort of training in the school systems. And we believe that if we can start teaching these basic fundamentals at a very young age, we are going to start to see huge changes, population changes. And I think the same is true for the nutrition piece, right? Like you said, like it's one thing for you to have the little kids and you're talking about to the parents about, oh, they should have fruit and all the good things that they should have in their meals. But then, it only goes so far, right? It has to be an entire family unit that is making those changes. I was listening to you do another podcast with another physician, and you were talking about creating habits, which is a really big deal,
Mm.
Yeah.
even for those of us who have adult children and are trying to do that with our own families. So talk about some things that people can do to start to create some healthy habits for their homes.
It varies with every household, just depending on
Of
where
course.
you are. The first thing I usually would say is that you have to keep an open mind
Mm.
about where you are, right?
Yes, that's
It's,
so true. So
you have to
universally
keep an
true.
open mind because sometimes we're so fixated on like it has to be this way or that way.
Mhm.
It's not one size fits all for everybody. So keeping
Yes.
an open
Yes.
mind and first of all understanding where you are because you have to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
So say if I'm counseling a family or a parent, depending on what they're dealing with, I go through a list of questions to see what's the most critical thing we need to change right now.
Mm.
It could be
Mhm.
sleep. So if sleep is the one
Yes.
thing that's affecting your entire household, that will be our focus. So I would
Yeah.
tell eat whatever you want to eat, but let's make sure we're sleeping right.
I
Yeah.
Right?
love that.
Right.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So you
It's so
start.
practical and it's so start from where you are because if you try to just lambast some parent who's already overwhelmed with every single thing they need to do, you're going to just lose them.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And you want to make it as
Yeah,
realistic as possible. Because
right.
and in looking at where you are again and being realistic with your schedule, the time commitment,
Yes.
and what you have.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest thing with parenting now is it's overwhelming. The lifestyle is so stressful, where if you're
Yeah.
not intentional about creating time for yourself and your family, you are there, but you're never there.
Mm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
love
just
that.
like, no, I'm giving them, they have a roof over their head, they have
Yeah.
food, I don't have time to cook, just throw this at them, let them eat. I'm trying to make sure and the whole idea is that I'm working, I'm taking care of my kids, but the kids, what they really need from us is for us to be there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
to
They
to
want
pay
us to
attention.
the attention and stuff. So
Yeah.
sometimes with everything gets overwhelming where it's hard for you to even take care of yourself. It's hard for you to plan anything. It's hard for you to do anything good for your kids. So going back to the habits, making it realistic and planning. If it's my kid is a picky eater, I can't get them to eat. You start eating healthy. It could be like starting with the drinks. We're not going to have any juice or sodas at home. I know that's going to be some people are like, no, you can't do that. But really, our kids are going to do what we do. So I would
Yeah.
start with me. I am going to take away the sodas. I'm going to take away the juices and stuff. I just start drinking water. And before you know it, we drink water in the household. And that may be the one
Yes.
change you're capable of making. But that alone makes a huge
Huge
difference because
difference.
that cuts down the calories, the empty calories our kids are
Right.
consuming. And now they're forced to actually eat the nutritious because everything is not, every calorie is not the same, right? Uh,
Right.
like especially with picky eaters, they will drink everything, and then when you put a plate in front of them, of course they're not hungry. There's no incentive to even try it
Yeah.
because I can just leave that. I'll drink a bottle of juice or 8 bottles of milk a day. I've seen crazy stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
Where it's just like,
Well,
I'll take it
a-
all.
and then the other piece of, hydration is that most human beings are dehydrated,
Yes.
right? Like, so Marcy and I did these workshops with kids pre-pandemic, and we had these water bottles, and throughout the day, we gave them a calculation of what their volume of water should be throughout the day. And
Right.
none of them were ever drinking the amount they were supposed to. And then we had teenagers, right? So they're always trying to grab a soda or something else. But so many of the teens are sleep deprived and they're dehydrated and they wonder why they show up with these headaches in the morning at school or whatever, right? Hydration, that one thing is huge.
Right.
Yep. So the other piece of this that you were talking about is sleep, and Marcy and I are big on sleep hygiene. Talk about sleep hygiene and what you might teach a family about sleep hygiene.
Sleep hygiene, it goes where you have to really start preparing for sleep at least 2 hours before bedtime. It's
Mhm.
not just you're active, busy, busy, and then get into bed and like, oh, I can't go to sleep. So really, you have to start preparing for sleep right at dinner time. I start out with what are you eating for dinner? What are you drinking during dinner time? Because what I did notice is that a lot of families would consume caffeine for dinner, either through iced
Yeah.
tea or with a Coke or some soda that has caffeine in it. And when it's time
Hmm.
to go to sleep, I'm not able to go to sleep. So being mindful of what you're eating, the timing you're eating, you're not eating right before bedtime. Maybe have your meals 2 hours before bedtime is the start. Now, after
Mhm.
that, having some kind of relaxing time with family too, where you're kind of connecting with your kids,
Mhm.
helping with homework, so more activities that are kind of helping you relax and calm down versus very hyper screen time, watching movies or playing video games that are exciting to the brain.
Mhm.
Having a nice warm shower before bedtime helps your body relax. Even in the bedroom environment, we go through it and see. You want to make sure it's nice and dark. There's no lights in there. The temperature is cool. The temperature is key. It's a big one for most families because some
Yes.
kids are coming in, especially the babies. We bundle them up, we wrap them up, and poor babies have heat rash around your necks because
Oh.
we're scared our babies are going to be cold. But then they
Mhm.
wake up frequently at night because poor baby's hot.
Yes.
Wow.
And when you're hot at nighttime, it interrupts your sleep. So there's little things that you can
Tell me
change,
about
whether
it.
it's with eating dinner. Yeah.
Get into your 50s and that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
As she's peeling off her clothes.
Like, what happened? here. Yeah, yeah.
You know, Debbie was joking that I get sick of hearing her talk about nutrition, but that's really isn't true at all for me. One thing, and because I'm in our partnership, Debbie's the sciencey one, and I am the not sciencey one who's trying to do the right thing, but is utterly confused by all the contradictory guidance that's out there. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of us are like that. There's people eating keto, and there's people eating primal, and there's people doing this, and there's people saying that these foods are bad and these foods are good. I feel like now there's kind of more of a movement to maybe put some of that aside, stop demonizing certain foods, take some of that charge out of it to allow more balance, but doesn't mean you don't ever eat this or don't ever eat that, or the super regimentation, which can lead to, we know eating disorders and other things. But there's just so much stuff. And now anybody, can pick up their phone and become a TikTok expert or Instagram expert saying, don't ever eat this. Or one of the guys I follow talks about I think they're called aisle walkers, the people who go through the supermarket with their phone telling you what's good and what's bad. And like, you have no idea what their justification or any kind of, they're not doctors, they're not nutritionists, but how do you help just clear away some of the confusion and help people just sort of begin with, like you said, making some simple steps to eating better?
I usually start with doing a food diary. Because again, with all the foods that we eat, I mean, there are certain foods that you tolerate. I'm not going to tolerate it. There's certain foods that another person will tolerate, and it's going to cause allergies. So there's a variety for a reason. So I usually try to make it as personalized as possible, making decisions from inside out, where if you give me a food diary for like 2 weeks, what I had for lunch, how did I feel after eating that particular kind of food? How much of it did I eat, and how did that make me feel and stuff? And you come to find out what foods are good for you and what foods are not. If you feel like beans, I'll say for me, I love beans, but beans, I get bloated if I eat a lot of it. So I stay away from it as much as possible. And someone can tell me it has a lot of nutrients, this is good for you. But for me, I know my limits when it comes to that. So really starting there and paying attention, because your body will will tell you. Your body knows better than anybody else, and every symptom is feedback of what you're putting in your body.
It's just paying attention, right? So much of our eating is unconscious, right? Marcy and I talk about this, but that's the first step with everything, is just having an awareness. And that food diary turns on light bulbs for everyone. I think like that is right. They don't need to be seeing Dr. Friendly to do a food diary to realize like, wow, this thing, like this does not feel well for me. I love popcorn. Oh my God. The next morning I am in so much pain. Yeah, I should not be eating corn for sure. Right. And I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, and but I know like that thing, right? But
interesting.
That is key. That is key.
Yeah, and I started this actually with my mothers who are breastfeeding, and that's usually the time where you're trying to breastfeed, and every time I breastfeed, my baby just screams, they're colicky, they're gassy and stuff. And we start out looking at the food diary, and we're eliminating once we get rid of certain things, and then the baby's fine. And then that's the time where most mothers become aware. I had a mother after like 3 months or so, she's like, I never knew I could feel this well, like there's clarity. I'm not I'm not as tired as I usually am, even though she was still breastfeeding. But because of her kid, she needed to become more aware of what her kid was tolerating and not. So she did eliminate a lot of things from her diet that were not working for her and her baby. And she saw the results in herself too. Yeah. So sometimes we'll stigmatize one thing or the other. I usually say start with you and see what your body's telling you, because your body will give you better feedback than anything else. Now, there's certain things as far as processed foods and stuff that I usually would say try to eat very little of, because there is a lot of research about processed foods with that increased risk of cancer and other things. But again, I try to make it where as practical as possible, where you're getting the reward or the consequences. You can see it, how it's actually happening. And that
Yeah.
tends to lead to more consistency because, again, the key is doing it where you're consistent. Because having a big diet of no meats or no or no foods for like a whole month, that's not sustainable.
Mm.
After 2 months, you give up, like it doesn't work. And that's why you have, if people say this diet doesn't work, that diet doesn't work, because we're trying to force ourselves or our bodies into just from one level to another. That's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that idea of listening to the body because it's so true. We're all different and tuning into how our body's responding. And then the other part that's interesting for me, again, as a woman in my barely still in my 50s, my upper 50s, is how things change and how frustrating that can be because you think you got it figured out and you're like, I know what to eat and I know how much exercise I need. And then turn 40 or 45 and suddenly everything changes. And I too was, well, I want to say recently, but I spent most of my life with very low blood pressure. And then in my 40s, just flipped a switch and now high blood pressure. And that's so frustrating because, again, I think that I know my body, but now I'm having to, and I exercise and I do a lot of good things, but now I'm having to like look at salt, sodium intake, which is not something I ever thought about because I'm not a food salter or anything like that. But then the processed foods and, you hear it, I know they use extra salt, but now I'm reading labels for salt versus fat or calories or other things. And, yeah, that's where it can get overwhelming.
Right. And I usually say enjoy the process. Look at it as an experiment, right? We're constantly learning
Yeah.
and we have different seasons of life where
Yes.
if I'm eating this way today, it may change tomorrow. I may be
Yeah.
exercising one day today and
Yeah.
a different way tomorrow. I'll give another example of myself where I've gone through exercise is another thing I talk about.
Yeah.
When I first started, this was again when I first started after my baby. I wanted to lose the baby weight. I wanted to bring down my blood pressure, so I signed up for a boot camp. That was the worst thing I ever did.
Oh, boot camp? Is that
Boot
what you
camp,
said?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Boot
Oh,
camp.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing. After
Yeah.
was it 6 weeks, I think, I did not exercise for almost a year. I was exhausted.
It broke you.
Yes.
It broke me, but that's
Yeah.
not what I needed in that
Yeah.
season. So when I started back up, I took up walking. And I
Yes.
loved my walking time because again, as we say, it's overwhelming and stuff with parenting and everything we need to
Yeah.
do. I needed the walking was not really for weight loss or anything. It was my me time. It was
Yes.
a time when in the morning, everybody in the household knew in the morning, I'm going out for a walk. So don't wake
Yes.
up in the morning looking for mommy. She's not there.
Yes.
I wake up before everyone else, anyways. That was my meditation time. That was my
Yes.
reflection time. That was my planning time. So even though I was in like doing high key exercise, that's what I needed in that season. And it
Yes.
worked out for me in so many ways. And then after that, after a while, I'm like, oh, I need strength training. I could tell in my body, like, okay, exercising, I need something else in the strength training. So as time passed on, I moved on to the gym where I was doing more strength training exercises, never a boot camp though. So it's
Yes.
just understanding, just understanding what your body needs in every
Yes.
season and just be accepting of it. Because once we accept, okay, this is where I am, all right, what else can I change? And it becomes where it's like, oh, this is an experiment. This is life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, it seems like walking is becoming more and more like I'm hearing more and more stories about how good it is. And I'm a walker. I love walking, but it's multiple levels. It is really good for your physical, but like you talked about the mental and the self-care, that's where we come back to that, like finding that thing that calms you, so say more about that.
Self-care is big, especially with mothers, especially with
Hmm.
parents, because if you are not taking time to take care of yourself, you're going to be overwhelmed, frustrated, and the kids are going to take the hit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
end up taking it out on the kids. So I usually recommend at least 5 to 10 minutes minimum of your day just for you and
Mhm.
finding something that brings you joy. Walking is one thing for me. It may not be your thing. It may be meditating, it may be journaling, but just that reflective time to take care of yourself. You may be in a season of your life where it's just I'm going to take a 5-minute shower. You'd be surprised at how
Yes.
many parents don't even have
and
that time.
and cry. We all cry in the shower. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be here. So
Yes.
that is huge. But finding that thing for you again that will
Yeah.
bring you that calm and that peace and that time where you're filling up your cup so you can pour out to your kid for your kids too.
Yes.
And the second thing is setting boundaries. It's
Mm.
okay to say no. It's okay to say, I'm not able to, because with that, I like that because you're not setting it for yourself only, but you're helping your kids know it's okay to say no.
Yes.
So your kids don't end up in that cycle where we have to take on. But I respect myself already enough to say, I'm tired. I'm just going to stop here and I'm just going to take a break. It's okay.
Yeah. That is so important, especially for moms, because we do become so giving and caregiving, and and it's a part of that stage. But absolutely, if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot give from an empty cup. So you gotta, like you say, fill your own cup.
Right. Because there's
Yeah.
the misconception that as a parent, taking time for yourself may be selfish, or
Yeah.
no, it's selfish,
Yeah.
or you have to do everything for your kids to be considered a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't call, I mean, you love them, you provide for them, and you let them be those uniquely created beings they are created to be. Or
Yes.
like, you figure it out. I'm right here. If you need
Yes.
help, come to
Well,
me. But
and you're modeling, right?
I
So
love the modeling.
they're watching what you're doing during
Yeah.
those formative years, and then they'll be able to do that for themselves. But if they
right.
never see you doing it, and then all of a sudden they're in their teenage years and having a terrible time, they would have never have seen that or known that how important that was.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I love modeling. I think parenting is modeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
like I said, our bodies, everything in life is feedback. And even our kids' behaviors are reflection of our behavior. It's feedback
Hmm.
back to me.
Yeah.
So whenever my kid is having a tantrum, I don't look at her, I'm like, you're having a tantrum, stop. I look at me. What is she telling me here? Well, what is she communicating to me, or
Mm.
why did she get into that tantrum? So it's everything is feedback, where if you look at it, where like, okay, I don't have to be perfect, but that's the mirror for me to adjust. Okay, I have to change or
Yes.
tweak the way I do this. I won't do this next time, or I'm modeling, or what did I model? How am I communicating to my kid and stuff? So there's so many layers to it, but it's really the message that it's not perfect. There's no perfection in parenting. There's
Yeah.
no one there is no perfect parent, but it's just feedback. That
Yeah.
didn't work out. Let's
Yeah.
strategize, let's replan and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want to bring up a negative subject, but I'm going to because I feel like it's really, really important. And I think there's not enough people talking about it. And that is the issue, especially in the United States, of childhood obesity. And where do you think this comes from? Clearly it's everyone wants to point the fingers at, the phones and all this stuff, but there clearly there's a lot to it. As I was growing up, I can't even think of a child in my class who had any sense of childhood obesity. It just wasn't around. So talk about that, and what is your thought on how we got here, and then perhaps a remedy.
Okay, so
The big one.
childhood
Sorry.
childhood obesity, there's so many things that contribute to it. Like you said, in childhood, a lot of things are rapidly changing. There's the kids today are dealing with things that we did not deal with, and we have more things available to us now that we did not have. So whether it is the food choices, because we are so busy, we have a variety of fast food, quick and easy. Like we don't have time to really sit down and have meal time on the table like we used to. But we are hurrying. We're all working out of the house. We're like, oh, I got out of work late today. All I have time for is to drive by, pick up whatever I need to at some restaurant. Everybody has food to eat. Everything is extra large.
Yeah.
Extra large of
Yeah.
some soda or fries or burger and stuff. That leads to overeating. So there is what we're eating, and then there's overeating aspect of it too. And then we get back home, we're not walking, we're not doing anything because everything's drive-through, right? Even when we go through the
Yeah.
restaurants, which is drive-through, we're not walking. By the
Right.
time you notice, there's no activity, we're not walking around, we sit down on our desk for hours at a time. So it's sedentary lifestyle. What we're eating is fast food, but then they make it extra large and make you feel like you're getting a deal, but
Yeah.
you end up with kids who are overeating. We're not
Well,
listening to
and
these.
they're overeating not only because it's a big gulp, but because there's absolutely zero nutrition in what you've just put in your body, right? So you filled it up for a second, but then they're hungry again in a little while because there's nothing, there's no resource in that food for your body, right?
Right,
So you just
right.
keep eating and eating and eating and eating, and then the sugar create, that's an addiction, right? So there's that whole piece where sugar has been added to almost everything there is in the American diet, sugar and salt.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have snacks too, not to talk about the meals. And
Yes,
then we end up
yes.
adding snacks on top of it, where the kids are like, I'm bored. And then I'll reach out for something to eat. Oh, I'm bored. What's there to eat? So it's like, why are we eating? And it's just so many things that have added towards the problem. Yeah. And we're not sleeping. And we know sleep regulates a lot uh, of systems in the body too. So we also know that a lack of sleep, if you don't get the recommended amount of hours of sleep that your body needs, you end up craving even more. We end up wanting more caffeine, and it's just that vicious cycle that
Yeah.
goes round and round. Where if we're not really intentional about
Yeah.
stopping it, or intentional about really stopping and seeing what we're doing, we just keep on going.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that you mentioned about how cheap the fast food is. And so we know there are a lot of people in America and probably around the world, but particularly in America that are struggling financially and looking for a way to feed their family. And we have food deserts where there's not opportunities for fresh produce and fresh vegetables. And so they're doing the best with what they've got. And unfortunately, it's not the healthiest choices.
Right. Well, let me take that back. I don't think fast food is as cheap as it's
Oh,
meant to, as
yeah.
as it seems, though. Because when you think about fast food, once you get one meal for a family, can go up to even $8 to $10 for a full meal. By the time you have a family of four for one meal or so, you're spending nothing less than $30 to $40 for that one meal, which if you were to go to the grocery store, you will probably for that amount of money buy what's equivalent for at least 2 or 3 meals. So it's all about the information that's out there, the adverts that's out there, the lack of time. There's so many things. It starts out in the mind where if I see that as my only option, I will continue doing that because I think that's the only way out.
Mm.
Even in the food deserts and stuff, there are supermarkets where even if it's a canned vegetable, you can buy 5 cans of canned vegetable and feed for your family. And there's things in there that you can really buy and feed your family with. And I will say last year I found out there's a local chef in my neighborhood, and they compared their meals with how much you will pay for equivalent for a family meal at a particular fast food restaurant. I won't put the name out there, but
They're all bad.
Okay.
yeah, but he used locally produced food. He bought from local vendors, and he created meals for the family where you could actually buy meals for the entire week. So he will
Oh,
give you a
lovely.
list. So it's made easy for you where that meal planning is out the door, but you have a chef who is using real food stuff and producing
Yeah.
different meals where you have 3 meals for your family, 3 meals for the week. So it's
Mhm.
easier that way. So it's finding what resources you have
Yeah.
available, just
Yeah.
having that open mind. There are people out there, there are local sources out there that may be selling or providing the resources that you're looking for.
Yeah. It's funny. I have kids that are in the millennial age group, and of course, it's very expensive to live here in California, and including the food, and not to mention the rent. But they're all about the meal prep. So on Sundays, they go and they do meal prep, and it's nutrition. It's rice and some vegetables, and maybe it's some, farm raised, some sort of meat, and they put it all together, they freeze them up, and this is how they eat for the week. And then maybe they add like a different sauce or something for a different night of the week, or they add some, healthy tortillas or something like that. But they are very creative with the food prep. I'm super impressed by that. And to talk about the money savings, like that's huge for them, right? So
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I like the habits thing where because even with the eating, when you plan ahead of time and then you don't have that excuse of I don't have time to prepare dinner, so I'm going to drive around because that's usually the excuse I've heard where like I don't have time, kids are screaming, they're having tantrums, they're hungry. So
yeah.
I had no
Yeah.
choice but to do another drive through. But if we start planning or taking that time to say, okay, I'm going to meal prep. This is what we're going to eat for the week, or these are the meals we're going to have for the week. And I have prep everything where at that nighttime or evening, weeknights, I'm not sitting down starting from scratch. I may be warming up something. I may be steaming an extra vegetable to make to have variety and stuff. So
Right.
planning is really essential, especially when it comes to nutrition. And
Yeah.
once we have that awareness that we have a choice, there are options and stuff, and we can start then like, okay, if this is not working, I'm leaving it food. There's like, what options do I have? What grocery stores do I have? Are there farmers around there? Are there local farmers who are selling their produce along the roads?
Yes.
What? So there are always options. It's about being aware of those options, so where they're and finding them. Yeah,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
comes back to empowering those moms again.
right,
And then, I love the idea. I was not a meal prepper. That wasn't, I just didn't do that. And thinking now I would have loved to have done that and then brought my kids into that process so that they could have learned that too. Um, Seems like that
right,
could be a good family activity, like because, we're trying to, I love anything that helps take some of that weight off of mothers. So bringing the whole family and hey, we're all going to eat. Let's all do our part. Could be a really great way to share that empowerment and that knowledge.
yeah. And I'll talk about this family I counseled once, and it was a teenager. There were two kids, two teenagers and a mom. And the issue here was that one of the teenagers was overweight and had was pre-diabetic and
Mm.
dyslipidemia, so the cholesterol levels were all over the place. So as we started talking about, we went back to grocery shopping. Who does the grocery shopping? Who cooks? Where does she shop from? And everything.
Mhm.
And going back to the main person that we're talking about, what did he want? I had to, because you have to get the kids involved. Once you get the
Right.
kids involved, you'll be amazed at how much they can offer to help, because sometimes we want to take over everything. But this particular kid, his why was he wanted to be a part of the football team. But for some reason,
Mhm.
he thought he could not get into the team because he had that conditioning, because he's overweight, he's big, and he'll never be able to keep up with his mates and stuff. I'm like, we can start out something where you can start running around the block. We're going to change the way you're going to eat. He is a planner. He was a planner, and mom didn't know about that.
Ah,
He said, we're going to change the way we do grocery shopping. He took over the grocery shopping. I mean, mom of course had to drive him to to
yeah.
the shop, but snacks were out of, that was the first thing we started out, because they'll go to Sam's Club and all of these places, they'll buy big boxes of snacks where it's just available and they're just
Mm.
eating because it's there. So we had to take out the snacks, replace them with fruits and stuff.
Mhm.
We talked about meal prepping, and this boy did all of it. He
Wow.
did. He took, mom only had to drive to the store. He wrote down the list. This is what we're going to eat. This is,
Uh,
if mom even decided, I'm like, let's just get a bag of chips. No, mom, we're not having that.
ah, wow, that's
Like,
a
no, we're not
great.
having that. But fast forward down the line, I think it was about 6 months, so 9 months down the line, mom brought him to the office and said, can you tell him his weight is good now so I can start back eating my yeah,
Wow,
That's
that's a
great.
beautiful story.
yeah,
It's amazing. It's this and you talk about this in one of your other podcasts, but it's about choice, right? Giving
right.
choice. So you talk about even like picky eaters, right? Which are teenagers, right? And you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to make the food, you have two choices. And if you don't like any of them, then I'm sorry. Like that, right? Because otherwise, I was that mom too, like okay, she wants that and he wants that, and my husband wants this, and like I'm making myself crazy, but it's beautiful. Even in that story, you are suggesting choices, right? Right, and it empowers and emboldens people. We do this even with yoga or whatever. Okay, so you have a choice to do it this way or do it that way. When you're exercising, you have a choice to do it this way or that way, and so that one thing is incredibly empowering for human beings in general, right? So whether it's around food or sleep or whatever, give
Mhm.
everybody a choice. So it feels like they're participating in the process, and that's when you make a generational change, I think.
Exactly. Exactly. Because
Mm.
our kids, they're unique. They're created uniquely formed their
Mhm.
own person. Our job here is just to help them, guide them through to become the
Yeah.
best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, whether it's eating, the way I like my food is very different from the way my daughter likes her food.
Mm.
I like it crunchy. My daughter likes it nice and soft. So so initially, when I first started, I tried to make her eat the way I did. It just didn't work out. Where the
Mm.
meal times were just stressful.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling the stress, they're feeling the stress too. So it's like
Mhm.
everybody comes ready for war. And it's like, you're not going to make me eat this, or you're going to eat this. And it never works out where it becomes
Yeah.
like, okay, we go through this, especially with toddlers. I don't know if you remember your toddler child, they're stuck in their ways. Like, you are not going to make me eat this and stuff. So
Oh yeah. Goes for the dog under the table. Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Right. But once you start backing up and trying to figure out their senses, their textures, what do you like? So I'll take her stuff out a little bit sooner and make mine crunchy, or I'll take her stuff out and put mine in the oven and make little tweaks where I'm not making an entirely new meal, but just paying
Mhm.
attention and seeing what they like or how they like it and
Yeah.
tweaking things here and there. The other thing is really modeling again, especially when it comes to eating, because if I want her trying to try new things, I have to show her I enjoy trying new meals too. So we
Mhm.
Mhm.
have it where I could even once a month, I haven't done it this month yet, speaking of which, once a month, we'll try something new, whether it's a new fruit, a new vegetable and stuff. And I'll start out like, I wonder what this tastes. And I'll taste it and I'll say, oh, it is soft, it is crunchy. How about you taste it? Tell me what you think. So we are trying this together and we're adding variety slowly but surely so that
Mm.
eventually down the line, after 12 months, you've tried 12 new things that your kid didn't try before, but she's watching me try it. And there's things
Right.
that I'll try, I don't like it. I'm like, this one tastes too sour, mommy. I don't like it. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
right. We'll try something else next time. And there's some
Mhm.
that we'll take and you continue on with. That's a new fruit. And there's some that, that does not taste good. We'll try something else.
Yeah.
So that there now you're introducing variety. They're saying you're trying new things, new foods. When they're going out there in life, they're okay with trying new things as well. So it goes
Yeah.
beyond just the food itself. It goes beyond them being in your household or out there where I'm comfortable with trying something new because this is not a new concept for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, I think we might be running out of time.
Yes.
I could talk to you all day about this because there's all kinds of stuff that I'd love to get into, but maybe for another time. So hopefully you'll come back and spend more time with us.
Right. Yes, this is
Yes.
amazing. And sometimes I feel like I go all over the place because I'm so excited about it. I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah.
I'm super proud of you for this work. I think it's long overdue, and I'm inspired by what you're doing. Honestly, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frundi.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love what you are doing too. I listened to the early podcasts and all the things you're doing as far as mental health and coping skills and tapping and grounding techniques and stuff, which I think some schools are now incorporating or putting into their curriculum, which is really good.
Yeah,
And
slow
yeah.
but sure. Slow but
We
sure.
hope. We hope.
Yeah, and I think that's essential. It's an essential part of well-being that is overlooked, that will provide the physical security, but we're not providing that emotional security. We're not
Yeah.
giving our kids the tools they need to go out there and really face the challenges because they're challenges today. They're always going to be challenges. So I really like what you're doing with all of that too.
Thank you so much. That means a
Thank
lot.
you.
And now for a moment about meditation and how it can help you and your family to self regulate and mindfully return to a place of calm and centeredness. Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. Meditation is just one of these powerful tools. And through a special partnership with Donna Appadoni, we have created a group of meditations available only on our platform and via Donna's own website. Here's Donna.
Life is balance. I feel a pull between the parts. I decide how much of the spiritual realm, how much of the material world. Hi, I'm Donna Appadoni. I'm the person who writes and produces meditations that are used by Core Experience. We know that life has its ups and downs. That's just sort of normal. It's like a wave in the ocean, or even a sound wave. It goes up and down. It goes in and out. Life experiences are better some days than they are other days. And that's a good reason to remember that balance is important. That's what this meditation is about. It reminds us that when we're having a bad day, we shouldn't overthink it or overdo it because something good is just around the corner. Something good will come to balance that out. All of the pieces of our lives fit together like a puzzle. Remember, whatever is going on with you right now, you can do anything you set your mind to do. I understand that all the pieces of life fit together. This is the puzzle of life. Life is balance. I decide. Life is balance. I decide.
Donna's book, called Drive Time Meditations, is a collection of 183 of her purpose-driven motivators. Drive Time Meditations is available on Amazon.
Thank you for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast. You can find us at coreexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our meditation segment is produced by Donna Appadone with music from Scott Holmes. The full collection of meditations is in Donna's book, Drive Time Meditations, available on Amazon and at donnaappadone.com. Thanks to Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or financial supporters. I'm Debbie DeMano.
And I'm Marcy Mitchell. The Warrior Parent Podcast is a production of Core Experience. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you. Thank you for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, produced by Core Experience. That's our nonprofit, and I would like to tell you about something big that's coming up for us. May 2nd, 2024 is the big day of giving in the greater Sacramento area. This is a day for nonprofits to fundraise and really strive to meet their annual goals. And for the first time, Core Experience will be participating in this big event. I want to tell you a little bit about our nonprofit, Core Experience, and our Core Tools app, which brings non-clinical modalities that are scientifically proven to decrease stress and anxiety to your home. They are appropriate for kids, for teens, for young adults, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, anyone who wants to lower their stress and anxiety. And our tools include heart-brain coherence, EFT tapping, meditation, yoga, bilateral tapping, art expression, nutrition, hydration, sleep protocols, and journaling. And there are more on the app. You can find out more at coreexperience.org. On the big day of giving, if you would like to support our vision of a calmer, more centered world with less anxiety, depression, and suicidality, please give to Core Experience on the big day of giving, May 2nd, or any day. You can go to our show notes or our website for a link and more information on how to give. We really believe in a world that has less anxiety, less stress, less suicidality, where people can show up as their authentic selves, in joy and purpose, and living their vision. We appreciate your help in getting us there. Thank you from Core Experience and the Warrior Parent Podcast.